I run them some. Energy.
Facebook as well? Not yet. But I'll- All right, good morning, everybody. Welcome to our regular quarterly meeting of the MRC. I'm Karen Cassell, president of the board. I'm very happy to see folks here in person today. I know we have some folks participating remotely as well, so welcome to you all. Happy to be having this meeting, which we have some great news to report. We're on the cusp of a significant transition for the MRC and the members, and we're very excited about the prospects for the future. We do have representatives from the company that we're working with here today to talk with us and to take questions. So we can look forward to that coming shortly on the agenda. Our first item, though, for consideration is approval of the agenda. And I'm wondering if we have any changes that we need to make. I know of a couple. So I believe we were talking about moving the executive director report down to just before public comment. Does anybody have any objection to that? Okay. And the other item is that we did have 2 executive sessions listed, and we do not need the executive session per 4056E to consult with our legal counsel. We'll have the one executive session to discuss a personnel matter, which is the performance evaluation of our executive director. All right, so do we have approval of the agenda? So move. Second. All in favor? Vote.
Madam
Right.
President,
Yes.
could we just briefly review the meeting logistics?
Thank you very much. So would you like to go over the logistics as the OWL commander?
I am not the owl commander, but I can tell you that the owl or the 2 towers that people see in the middle of the room are what are allowing the public online to be able to participate in this meeting. You need to speak up and speak clearly into an owl when you're talking. Otherwise, the owl will not hear you. The public will just see your lips moving. Not a particularly wonderful visual. So, you need to make sure you do that. The other thing is, while the owl is very skilled, it cannot pick up multiple conversations happening at the same time. This means if you're going to talk to your neighbor about something, you're going to confuse the owl and it's not going to know what to do. If people in the back talk, it will confuse the owl and the owl will not know what to do. So in order to have a smooth meeting, really need to speak one at a time into the owl and be recognized.
We're back to writing notes to each other and passing around. Huh?
Yep.
Thank you for that reminder. And folks listening online, if there are issues with the audio, please do post a comment and we'll get that transferred up here to us. All right. So our first item for consideration here is the minutes of a number of meetings. Those are the minutes of the April 27th, 2022 regular quarterly meeting, the May 18th, May 20th, May 25th, May 26th, June 1st, June 8th, June 14th, June 24th, June 29th, and July 21st special board meetings. Do I have a motion?
I move acceptance of those minutes. Second.
All right, motion and a second. Did anybody have any comments or corrections? Yes.
I have a couple. The first is in the minutes of April 27th. It talks about us meeting in hybrid form. Primarily everybody in a location, that location is not disclosed. And I think if you look at the statute, minutes have to include the location of a meeting. So I think while it does very well define that it was hybrid available on Zoom, I think we need to say at the Orono Town Office somewhere in there. And then in the comment section, the town of Camden has a P.
Excellent, thank you. Anybody else? I did have a question and perhaps a comment. I'm not sure the name of the investment banker is correct. Mike, do you happen to remember the name of the investment banker? Dan Z something.
Selling well.
Oh, it was, okay, so maybe it was Selling Well.
Swelling.
CW.
So we might just double check the spelling of his last name. There we go. All right, so we have a motion and second and a couple amendments. All in favor of those minutes as amended? All right. The vote. Okay, so at this point, we're moving on to presentation of the asset management report by our esteemed technical consultant, George Aronson, Commonwealth Resource Management Corporation. These asset management reports are available on the website, and today's approved version will get posted there shortly. Wealth of information about all of MRC's financials.
Okay, thank you, Karen, and I hope I can be heard. Again, every quarter, the MRC presents and posts its financial statements and key transactions and seeks approval from the board for transactions going forward. I should note that this is a period of a lot of transition and change, so that even over small periods of time, the balances can fluctuate greatly as we go forward, and the reason for that will be apparent as we go forward. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. It will be posted. I will note that as of the end of second quarter, which is July 1st, total assets of the MRC were down to $5.5 million, and that includes the value of the Hamden site and roughly $4 million in cash and receivables. So the statement of net position is down to 4.8 million, so that things are getting a bit tight. I think we're watching things very carefully. On the other hand, as will become apparent throughout the meeting, we're looking to round the corner on this, and so we are in a position to meet obligations going forward. In terms of specific recommendations on the in the asset management letter, I think we had 4 recommendations regarding distributions. One, which the board, there may be some discussion of, would be the distribution of 147 to 1292 to joining members in accordance with the requirements set forth in Exhibit B to the joinder agreements. A second would be a transfer of $150,000 from the target value reserve fund, which is held within the TIFI stabilization fund, to the development and distribution account, which is basically to cover that those distributions. The third would be a transfer of an additional $200,000 from the TIFI stabilization fund to the contingency account. The contingency account, to remind people, is where the MRC is taking funds to pay bypass disposal costs, and also where TIFIs are collected. The way it works is that disposal costs are typically paid slightly before TIFIs are collected, so there's a cash flow and a need for working capital to account for the leads and lags there. And as we go in time, additional capital is needed to cover that. We're looking at $200,000 to prepare for cash flow needs in the upcoming quarter. And finally, in accordance with the operating budget for 2022, we're looking to transfer an additional $50,000 to the operating account to fund administrative expenses. So those are the 4 items that are internal to the MRC. The last item, which I know we'll get some discussion further on, would be to be prepared to purchase or to complete the purchase of the facility. The MRC has already made a down payment into escrow of $150,000. The other funds would come out of the cash collateral account, so they're in a segregated account where they could be accessed. But that number, as of July 1st, was estimated about $1,020,000. That number might be a little bit different now. And finally, because to recap, it's $1.5 million less reimbursement of expenses, and we won't know what every expense is to the penny until the day of the transaction. So we're pretty close, and we're confident that the money in the account is sufficient to make the payment. But so those are the payment and transfer requesting from the board. I mean, I'm happy to discuss. I wouldn't note there was one typo on page 3 that in fact the site market value is likely to be more than what is on the MRC books. The MRC has not yet done an appraisal of the site. there are reasons to defer it and not incur the cost that may in fact be appraised as part of, by others as part of the process going forward. So the books still show the value at cost of the entire acquisition and development of the site, less the cost-based valuation of what was transferred to the town of Camden. The net number, which is on the books, probably less than the market value. We haven't done the appraisal. We'll keep it the lower figure. It's a conservative evaluation, which is what we like to do. So that being said, those are the recommendations. There is additional detail on each of the balances. There's also the usual matrix showing that all of the obligations set forth in the joint agreements are satisfied by the MRC's financial position. So with that, we go to the report, take questions.
Thanks, George. Anybody have any questions for George? Bob?
Just a comment. Fantastic job.
Thank you.
You down to the penny. Thank you.
Yeah, and George has been doing this for, what now, over 30 years for MRC and its members, and he's been to the penny the whole time. And
There was one penny in the 90s.
He gets you. Yeah, we gotta love it. So, yeah,
I still,
we appreciate your attention to detail and you know, the thorough tracking of MRC's assets and financial position. So
I'd also just like to recognize the incredible job that Mike and George are doing together around forecasting cash and making sure that we are gracefully utilizing what limited resources we have. So kudos.
any other questions or comments?
So I would move the acceptance of the recommendations listed in the asset management letter. The one caveat I would make is I would like to see the MRC approach the 3 communities that MRC is making whole based on the theft of commercial waste
Four.
to see if they would accept deferring the $40,000 payment that is in here until after the closing of the plant and cash flow improves.
I would second that motion.
Okay. Motion and a second. Any questions or comments about that motion? All right, all in favor? No, it's a vote. Thank you. Thanks, George. All right, moving on to the treasurer's reports. Esteemed treasurer of the board, Sophie Wilson.
So the finance committee met. It was a 40-minute meeting, which I love those short meetings. But the group, when we met, we reviewed our budget to actuals. So our expense budget was approved at the beginning of the year to be $637,858. So far, we are 58% spent, or $366,822.45. When you look at that, there are a number of one-time payments that make perfect sense that we would not be specifically at 50 at the end of the quarter. The one area that we are overexpended is our workers' compensation line. Because Mike's duties do not involve him sitting behind a desk on a computer all day, workers' comp has reclassified that, which we then saw a significant increase in the premium. Reasonable, but increase. And I think we also pointed out a change in health insurance, but it's within our policy, our personnel policy, so we would expect to see that. And a little bit of overrun in terms of the expense securing the plan. But all in all, I think Mike has done a really good job of acknowledging where we have overruns and trying to save money in other places. We also reviewed our investment strategy, and right now our strategy is trim for cash. And try to withhold this downturn in the market that everybody is having to deal with. Current, I think I'm not gonna confuse things by giving you the investment totals right now, because George's are close enough and it's a timing issue. It's not a. And payables, we reviewed the payables. There are corrected payables for every board member. We are asking for permission to pay $64,136.85 in payables. I also left a copy of the corrected payables for our attorney to take to our minute taker. That's all I have. This is easy.
So I would make a motion that we approve the payables as proposed.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Okay. Thank you, Sophie. So we've got a couple other small items before we get to the exciting part of the agenda. We wanted to remind folks that we're meeting in person for our quarterly meeting. So our next scheduled meeting is in October. So hope to see folks there too. My guess is we'll probably have a few special meetings in between now and then, but you know, we'll notice those as well. One item we have before we get to information about the proposed transactions that's coming up with regard to the facility is our little perennial favorite, which is a review of the extension letter regarding integral capabilities for performance test protocol. And John, I'll have you do the 30-second overview of what it is, remind folks of what we'd be voting on.
I'd be happy to, and I know it's a little bit of a deja vu, but this harkens back to the performance test protocol that the facility went through in November 2019. There were certain integral capabilities and conditions that had to be met by a certain time period. That time period has been extended by virtue of the situation, suspension of operations. So the recommendation has been to continue to extend that until we kind of turn the corner. My expectation is it'll probably become a moot issue, but nonetheless, because it does have some relationship to some of the key agreements, the recommendation would be to continue to extend it. So the suggested motion at this stage would be to extend the integral capabilities of the performance test protocol, another extension to and including, I'll say October 28th, 2022, which is a few days after the scheduled quarterly board meeting, which would be in keeping what we've been doing on a quarterly basis.
All right, thank you for that overview. So with that little description, is anybody interested in making a motion to adopt or to extend? Is it an extension?
So.
Yeah.
Second.
All right, we have a motion in a second to extend that letter to October 28th. Any questions? All in favor? All right, thank you very much. Okay, so the next item is a report from our executive director. And before I get started, I would just like to say how much we recognize and appreciate all that Mike Carroll has done to get us to where we are today. Like I said, on the cusp of a huge transition for MRC, very exciting prospects for the future. Mike has done an incredible job, really kind of holding things together with a little baling wire. He just makes it work. Every day he's solving dozens of problems and figuring out what needs to happen and what needs to get done to keep us moving forward and make sure that we have a future home for waste for our members. You know, a bright future, looking forward to, you know, increased recycling rates and all the things that we know are possible through this plan. So just wanted to thank you in advance. I know you're gonna tell us about some of the details and then hand it off and introduce our potential partners. Just want to recommend you take your time, talk slowly. You're gonna have a lot of information. I know folks out there in the virtual world are gonna be very excited to hear what you have to say, so take it away.
Thank you. Thank you, Karen. So we'll begin with some second quarter business and stats, and then jump into where everything is with the Hampton facility. The MSW tonnages for second quarter. Members total MSW ton for second quarter 2022 were 22,435 tons. Last year's members tons for first quarter for second quarter were 22,733 tons. A decrease of tonnage year over year of just about 300 tons. Bypass in Q2, MRC sent bypass notices out monthly to all members on behalf of Coastal, which directs the MRC members on where they should be sending their waste until we reopen the Hampton facility. Outside of the regular bypass schedule, we have only had to revert twice since last quarter. FERC had a mechanical issue in June, and then they recently just had a fire where we had to bypass waste last week, and they will take waste again on August 1st. MRC continues to oversee the Hampton facility to ensure everything is preserved for a reopening and complies with permits. I'm still meeting with DEP, regularly updating them and reviewing them on the sales status and everything going on with the Hampton facility. Facility update for second quarter. As many of you are aware, the receiver for the Hampton facility and the MRC did not deem any potential buyers that submitted proposals in June qualified. The proposals from bidders either did not satisfy the financial or the technical requirements to reopen the Hampton facility. With no qualified buyers, the receiver did not conduct an auction in mid-June. As a result of not having a qualified buyer, the next step is for MRC to purchase the facility for $1.5 million minus certain credits, but not less than $1 million as a stalking horse bidder. We have not closed on the facility as of yet. MRC has been working with lien holders to negotiate settlement terms so we can move forward with the closing. We are just waiting on one more document to be completed with one lien holder, which as of last night, we should be there. Once that is finalized, everything will be submitted to the judge for approval to move forward with a closing. Simultaneously, while negotiating with lien holders, MRC has been soliciting for potential private partners to share the ownership and operation of the facility once we own it. We are still working on securing our own financing as a plan B, but would prefer to work with a partner with both financial and technical capability to run this plan to the best interest of our members. That means a timely restart that includes running the plant economically, but still adhering to the MRC mission of an affordable, environmentally sound waste solution at its highest diversion rates available. Not only did we contact potential partners, but we were also approached by several candidates who had interest for some time in the facility, but did not want to deal with the complexity of the receivership and the sale process. MRC had a total of 5 potential partners to vet. We did a deep dive into the process and once again focused on technical capability, capital being proposed, operating plan, and so on. After that process, we quickly narrowed it down to 2 potential solid partners. We believe these were strong candidates to provide them with a solution of, We believe these were strong candidates and provided them with a solicitation of exclusivity bid letters. These letters stated, the MRC is seeking proposals from private entities interested in partnering in the redevelopment and restart of the coastal Hampton facility. The MRC currently anticipates that it will conclude this process of transferring ownership of the facility and related assets out of receivership to a limited liability company owned by the MRC by the end of July. The MRC seeks to enter into an exclusivity agreement to redevelop the facility through transactions with a private partner that is willing and has technical and financial capabilities to purchase interest in the LLC as a partner to the MRC, manage and fund the restart and return to commercial operations and associated modifications and upgrades of the facility, operate and maintain the facility on a long-term basis after that. Work with the MRC to provide funding to secure the condition of the facility and manage bypass disposal of MSW from our joining members. The proposed schedule that was given to these two potential partners was as follows. Proposals must be in by July 15th. The MRC board makes final selection and signs exclusivity on July 21st. Exclusivity agreement executed and deposit wired to the MRC escrow account at Eaton Peabody. Closing by September 7th. With the proposals in and the board's decision made on the 21st for exclusivity, MRC is excited to say we are moving forward on a partnership discussion with Revere Capital Advisors LLC to help reopen and restart the facility to reach full recycling capabilities in solid waste processing. Some of Revere Capital Advisors' strengths they brought to the table were the role and the level of ownership MRC will have in the Hamden facility, the amount of capital Revere is willing to bring to the table, willing to operate the plant as it is designed to operate, and provide management company that provides expertise in oversight of projects. As we have previously said to our members, to be successful in our endeavors to reopen and restart the facility, the MRC's preferred option is to have a private sector partner to share the responsibility of owning and operating the facility. This reduces the need for MRC to work with its members to finance the facility and help secure any arrangements for reopening and operating the facility for our members' best interest. I look forward to entering these negotiations with Revere for a goal of developing a long-term agreement for the ownership and operation and management of the Hamden facility. Moving forward, we will start negotiating and execution key agreements between Revere and MRC's new LLC. Introductions to key players for permit revisions such as the town of Hamden, DEP, Bangor Water will take place immediately. Scheduled meetings with key vendors to review assigned contracts, operations, and timelines will also be taking place. So with that said, that's pretty much my report. Does the board have any questions on that? So with no questions, I would like to congratulate Revere Capital Advisors LLC on being awarded exclusivity and introducing to the MRC members Nigel Eckerd, Chief Operations Officer, and Patrick Daly, Senior Manager and Director from Revere Capital Advisors. Gentlemen, would you like to come up and address the board and the members?
Excellent report.
Thank you. Comprehensive. Good morning. My name is Pat Dale. I'm the Senior Managing Director with Revere Capital Advisors based in New York. And we thought it'd be helpful to give us a brief overview of who we are and what our expectations are for the Hampton facility. First of all, we're delighted and excited.
Okay, you're gonna have to speak up and into the owl.
Okay, pardon me.
Pretend you're yelling at me.
I did listen, Sophie.
And nice and slow.
How delighted and excited we are here to be with this opportunity. I want to first congratulate both Mike and George for all the work they've put in for this and echo Karen's comments. But more importantly, across the table, they ran a very complex and difficult process, and they were professional and thorough and transparent and made our job a lot easier. Revere Capital Advisors is a New York-based investment firm. We manage a pool of our own capital. We have a series of partners that we invest with, and in addition, we have a FINRA-regulated broker-dealer and investment bank called Revere Merchant Securities, through which we conduct regulated investment banking activity, such as mergers and acquisitions, capital raising, and advisory. Revere Capital Advisors has a team of very experienced financial professionals that looks for interesting situations to deploy capital, access its partners, as well as its experience across a wide range of industries. Interesting situations like this in areas of focus that we have experience in and that are of interest to us. Currently, we have investments in the healthcare space, the defense space, the technology space, the healthcare technology space, both here and in the UK. And one of the areas of focus for Revere Capital right now is both sustainability and renewability. We're very excited that we were able to execute a 60-day period of exclusivity. We have a team of both technical and operational partners that are well versed in the project, and we're very excited to get moving forward as fast as we can. This is an important project for not only the people in Maine, but everybody in terms of the new technology and its ability to bring a new solution to the waste space, not only here in Maine, but throughout the world, quite frankly. So we're delighted to be here, and look very much look forward to a successful transaction with the team here.
No, all I would add is that this is a significant first step in this process, and we look forward to continuing the hard work we've been doing with Mike and with George in terms of the transaction. I guess if we have any questions we can address from the board or I guess from the virtual audience.
One thing I would say is, I think as Mike and George can attest, we're available 24/7. So for the board members, if they have any follow-up questions, we're available at any time. We speak pretty regularly with George and Mike, but anything directly, we're delighted to follow up in any way, shape, or form.
Thank you, Pat. Thank you, Nigel.
I have a question. Just one quick thought as you move forward. You're probably well aware that Maine is struggling with PFAS right now. And I think one of the things that communities would like to hear from you ultimately in what your long-term strategic plan is, might have some component that addresses our concerns as a state and our 114 members with PFAS disposal, because right now that's just absolutely bringing us to our knees. Thank you.
The short answer is yes, and it's quite integrated. I'll make 3 comments. One, we intend to restart the plan with the existing technology. Obviously, there's some upgrades that have to happen, as there is with any new technology, number 1. 2, we've been in direct consultation with our partner, the MRC, and their advisor, Commonwealth, in terms of what the key issues are. Yesterday, we met with Mike and George, and PFAS was on the agenda as a critical item. Obviously, as technology evolves, new discoveries occur, and the one common theme is we're looking for a comprehensive waste solution, taking into account all the different components in terms of both the recyclable products and the residuals. And we really feel that this will be a very important marriage of capital and operating expertise and input with our MRC partner in terms of hopefully this plant being an example for not only the rest of the country, but the rest of the world.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Yes, please.
my name is Eric Troji. I'm chairman for the Surrey Blue Hill Transfer Station down in Peninsula. Congratulations, and this is very exciting to hear that you folks are involved, and it sounds like you're going to bring capital to the project, which is obviously very necessary. Are you using obviously you're investment advisor, so you're using a third-party team of engineers and so forth to do
A series of third-party engineers.
So is this like that'll operate like a subcontractor to you? How does that happen?
They'll operate as a partner to us and as a subcontractor. I mean, obviously, you know, we collectively, our team, have worked on projects around the world, ranging from the UK, the United States. Quick aside, I was involved in the buyout of the Merck facility down in Biddeford back in the late 90s with Central Maine Power. And so obviously, this is a very complex project with not only just the new technology, but just the operational aspects in terms of, and so we'll have a partner and a contractor that we'll work with who will quarterback the overall design, upgrades, procurement, and construction, and then operate the facility ongoing with a significant municipal waste experience.
Got it. And I don't want to get ahead of the process, but when I'm asked the question, well, who is this? Do you have boots on the ground and so forth? At what point would you be identifying who your engineering contractor partner would be?
Very soon. The lead on it will be CS Solutions, which has operations in both Maine and Florida. And then through that, there'll be a variety of subcontractors.
Right, and then obviously from the sounds of it, your company, you invest in technologies and so forth, and this is your strategy to optimize this plant and hopefully take this technology and leverage it for other sites and so forth worldwide. Is that your
Well,
long-term strategy?
I think our strategy is to get this plant up and running. And then, once this plant is up and running, see where it could be applied in other locations. Clearly, I've got a background in the renewable energy space. And clearly, renewability and sustainability are terms that are bandied about quite liberally, but to me, they mean two things. They mean clean energy and dealing with overall waste solutions. And overall waste solutions involve recycling and optimization and cleanliness. And so the ability to divert a significant amount of incoming trash into recyclable products is important. We intend to restart the plant with the existing technology. Like all technologies, they will evolve over time. But the first step is to get the Hamden plant up and running and serve the needs of people in.
And the first step to get the plant up and running and working and profitable. I need to demonstrate profitability of that model. And then, yes, then you can take that out nationally, you can take it out globally.
I would assume that's how you sold it to your board.
Exactly.
Ultimately.
Well, I mean, just look where we are a decade later with solar energy. You know, with the technological advancements in solar energy in terms of what panels can produce, things of that nature. We can't predict the future, but it's very clear that both renewable energy and innovative, sustainable solutions are going to be a key part of any policy going forward.
Great, thank you, Joe. Appreciate it.
And I will say that folks online, if you're interested in speaking a question, you can raise your hand and we can put you up on the screen. We'll also take questions through the Q&A or the chat feature.
Yeah, well, we have one that came in through the Q&A feature.
Okay.
From Pamela Tremblay. Are there any current discussions about possible long-term projects to implement large-scale composting and possibly instituting mandatory composting for stakeholder towns?
We're having a lot of conversations about all different types of waste that could, like these gentlemen said, the focus right now is get the facility currently up and going, as it was designed to operate, and then what do the additional features look like for bolt-ons on that, whether that be some type of compost for gas or that be tire shredding. But our goal is to look at all different types of waste outside the MSW. And, one of the terms we use is a bolt-on addition to this facility. We want to be the solution for all the municipalities, different types of waste.
But I would like to remind folks that the facility was designed to optimize the processing of organics so that the organics are pulled out of the waste stream essentially and then anaerobically digested to produce a biogas, which could become natural gas, it could become CN, compressed gas for vehicles. So that's integrated into the technology in the facility currently. So it's, in my mind, a comprehensive solution to the organics issue within the waste stream, so. All right. Did you have a comment on top of that, George?
Sure, we know.
Okay.
Yeah. that's great job.
Yeah.
Bob, do you have a question?
I do. First, thank you for your interest in this. I know you've been following it for some time and we're waiting for the right moment. I guess that's a lie. My question is, we have a limited window left to us. What do you see yourself spending most of your time doing during that period of time? Arranging the funds or resolving some of these engineering issues you may have concerns about?
Comprehensively addressing what needs to be done to get the plant to be restarted as quickly as possible. And that will involve, obviously, engineering and operational issues, concerns, and making sure that the capital is available in the right sequences to fund those situations. As well as we've had extensive discussions with Mike and George to optimize the reopening of the plant to meet people's needs. So I think it's realistic on September 1st, the plant's not going to reopen. But because some technical fixes have to be made, at the same time, our intent is not to wait till the 18th month to open. So we've discussed with our engineering partners and Mike, different strategies for bridge waste and other things. So it's to answer your question, it's a comprehensive approach because unless we think we're well along in our engineering designs and as those get approved, then the capital is approved to fund those. So as you know, from your finance background, Bob, it's a very integrated solution, which we will quarterback, if you will, among the different constituencies.
Yeah, and what I would add is that we've begun immediately this week, we've begun the process of the technical fixes, so the operational aspects of it. And figuring out the time frame and the sequencing to get the plant reopened just as soon as possible, where it will operate profitably. Right, so it's an integrated process in terms of, we have work and negotiations to do sort of in terms of the legal deal. But the operating evaluation and project is already underway.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Anybody post anything online or? I actually had a question for our legal advisor. With regard to this close on the purchase of the facility by the MRC. Is it still realistic that we'll be able to pull that off this week? Or, I mean, given that we're just securing the last of the lien agreements?
It's a great question. I don't think we would close this week. I don't think that would be realistic. I think the best case, more realistic outcome would be finalize formally the settlement of lien holder claims. That would result in the filing of a withdrawal of objection by one lien holder, waiting for that to occur. And then it's a product of how quickly the judge or court would act. So if just as a scenario, if the objection was withdrawn, between today and tomorrow, it certainly would be possible that the judge might act by the end of the week. But I would not predict the court's schedule necessarily, but I think it would happen quite quickly in terms of acting on the sale motion. It could be by the end of the week. I would temper that a little bit, probably would be early next week. If the sale motion is approved, if and when it is, then it's just a matter of, I think we could close in a pretty short time frame thereafter. It would not be weeks, it'd be really a matter of days. I mean, 7 to 10 days might be a window of time to think of. So once that happens, I think this will happen quite quickly. It can happen as quickly as people would like to move.
All right, thank you. So does anybody have any other comments or questions or things that they'd like to talk about with regard to the facility or?
I think the only thing I want to say is, of course, thank you very much for coming up. Really appreciate it. And I'm looking forward to working with Revere. I do think for our members, just as you reminded folks of the technology within the plant, this might seem like a little bit of a departure from the way we had envisioned the management and oversight of the plant. But this is not new to the MRC. We are going back to what has worked before, which are private partners, MRC in partnership, with a very small voice, but yet a mighty one. And ultimately, I think as I watch this unfold, it's coming together as a collaboration that I think will pay dividends into the future. So can't predict, but I think we're on a good path. And one of the things I'm most happy to see is some real thought to on-site management and how things are going to actually work, because I think that's where we had a lot of frustration before. So I know it still feels like we are talking around issues because there's still a lot of stuff to be decided and some things that are still subject to confidentiality, but we're on a path and the sale will get bondholders and lien holders out of the way so that we can go back to doing the work that we're used to doing.
George.
Yeah, I just thought I might, so first of all, like I had a long day yesterday at the plant with, the Revere folks, and we talked a lot about, next steps. I thought it might be useful to give a little bit of flavor of some of what that will involve. The goal is to, once the MRC is the owner, and actually the MRC would own it through an LLC and the subsidiary, the plan would be for Revere Capital Advisors and its investors, through a couple mechanisms still being sorted out, to actually buy into and buy the interests in that LLC, and in fact become the majority owner, leaving a bit for the MRC as a continued position. That's done explicitly, so the MRC continues to have a voice at the table in the discussion of how the LLC is governed going forward. The MRC is also the landlord, and the MRC also represents the towns and municipalities bringing waste. So there are actually 4 hats here. And when you start with the 4 hats, you realize what has to be done into agreements. It's really not that complicated. It's just 4. But as the representative of the customer, the MRC has a master waste supply agreement. It was first negotiated in 2017. There have been some changes. We have a new partner. There are going to be some amendments to reflect the things that happened from then to now. TIP fee will stay the same, but some of the things involving service need a little bit of updating now that we know a little more than we did then. The MRC is still the landlord. The Revere or the LLC governed by Revere will be the tenant. There needs to be a site lease. We have a project. A lot has happened in the last 4 years, and the site lease will need to be amended to reflect what has happened, some things that are out of date, a few things that are new. Again, no surprise there. A landlord has a site lease, a customer has a customer agreement for service with the service provider. The 2 new agreements are, since the MRC will have a voice at the table, and the MRC will be selling the interests in the LLC that the MRC is creating, there will be a sales agreement talking about the conditions of the sale, and there will be an operating agreement talking about the governance of the LLC going forward. So 4 hats, 4 roles, 4 agreements, and a whole lot of details to parse through that I'm not going to do now, but I did think it would be useful to go through that 1, 2, 3, 4 steps so people understand when specific issues come up, where they fit in the big picture, what role the MRC will have. And I think, in response to some of the questions, part of the exciting part of it here is that not only are we looking forward as, by keeping a voice at the table, we can say municipalities have this need. Biosolids are a problem in Maine. How do you address them? PFAS are a problem in Maine. We have a large site with some space. Are there bolt-ons we can do for addressing some of these other waste streams that right now are what might be called hard to manage waste or orphan waste, or maybe it's every town for itself. And there's a way to do a regional solution that saves everybody a bit of money and is better for Maine. And then there are synergies when you do everything in the same place, because the truck, instead of coming back empty, could actually take something. So there are a lot of opportunities here, not only with reopening, but getting to that stage we didn't get to last time of really adding services and benefiting from the synergies of having more than one thing happen at a centralized facility. So we got to reopen it. We got to get to the point where it's profitable, but then we have also have the opportunity to integrate all these other things going forward, ranging from, biosolids or PFAS related concerns to tires, any number of things that are headaches that maybe we can manage better as a state and as a region. So I think, it's really an exciting point. And I think, Revere is really very interested, not only in the short term, but also the longer term. We don't want the long term to get in the way of the short term, because we got to get back up and operating as soon as we can. But that long term is also very, very exciting. We got to keep our eye on it as well. We're happy to do that.
Yeah, well said, George, right? And the 4 points I would just add to that, simultaneously with it, there's a lot of work for us to do in the 60-day period to get all of that documented. And to Bob's point, that sort of separately, we're proceeding on the operations path to get those issues addressed. The 5th point or document I'd add is that we will, the MRC will have a voice in the management of the facility as we've described. And there'll also be a management services agreement. So there's another document that we have to actually put in place with the MRC between that LLC and the MRC that will cover comprehensively sort of all of the dealings between the MRC and basically new code. Yeah.
And one more question.
Sure.
Sure, sorry. Will the LLC own the technology or is this under license still, or what's the status of that?
I'm not an attorney, but I'll give you my understanding of having read the documentations. Is there is an intellectual property license for the technology as per the original offering documents where the Jeffries privately placed municipal securities were placed. That license gets conveyed to whoever purchases the assets for the handling facility. So the user of that license may do so under the terms and provisions of the original financing documentation put together by Jeffries and the original placement of the same municipal securities.
So, wait, so you'll have the right to license, but you won't own the technology.
That's my I'm not an attorney, but that's my
So
understanding.
I was an attorney, I'm no longer an attorney. But Pat is right, is that the LLC will assume that intellectual property agreement that was in place with the old coastal. New coastal will assume that agreement, and that agreement covers the use of the IP basically. But the new coastal will not own the IP, right? We're under licensing. And it's a benign license agreement of perpetual, no royalties owed. So you have full use of all of the technology, but you don't own the technology, the patented IP.
Thank you.
Was there another question that came in online?
Yep, there's a couple more questions. The first one is from Reggie Palmer and is the expectation that the profitability can be reached with the current tipping fee schedule.
Short answer is yes.
And then the second question is from Daniel Smith. After the plant is up and running, is PERC going to be used to dispose of burnable waste, or is it going to be landfilled?
So there's currently assigned agreements with this. That is something as we work through things, we need to see where all those agreements stand. Waste Management has the contract for the residuals and the waste. And, that will be the way that that's assigned, that this will continue. But there's other types of waste that come through the facility, and those areas will have to be looked at.
Is that it? Right. Anything else, Tony?
I just want to say it's been a long, strange trip to get to this point, and I'm excited, having met the gentleman, please. I'm really excited about moving forward.
I'll say it one more time. Mike and George have been incredibly diligent, professional, always protecting the interests of the MRC, but also being practical in terms of the framework moving forward. And I really do applaud them in terms of navigating as complex a process as I've ever been involved in, including the receivership. Thank you.
Well, we do appreciate your perseverance, and like Tony said, and other folks have said, we're super excited about the prospects for the future, and look forward to working with you as a team. Hopefully we'll get through early September, and it'll just be wide open spaces after that.
Thank you. Great.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right. Well, so that concludes the bulk of our agenda. We do have an executive session to conduct our executive director's performance evaluation. We do expect to have an action as a result of that executive session. So we will return after that to public session for that action and to adjourn. We'll also be convening for a little lunch, but so I think, I will remind folks that we do have the next regular public meeting, the 4th Wednesday in October. And the 26th, yeah.
Yes.
So I guess we will, I consider a motion to go into executive session if somebody has that.
I move we convene an executive session pursuant to 1 MRS section 405(6)(a) to conduct executive director annual performance review.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor? All right, so we will go offline.